they've talked a lot about it going insolvent, both parties have. In the Democrat Party, their idea is, of course, to raise taxes. And my opponent in that race, Brandon Wade, he's all for it. I've talked with him a few times. And Congressman Josh Burkeen, he supports his party's idea of raising the retirement age on it. And these things have been done before, and they haven't worked. They were done last time in the 80s under Ronald Reagan. And I don't know why both these men are supporting their parties, maybe because of their leadership. I've talked with them, and they're very knowledgeable. And both, I've explained, these things have never worked before. Let's try something new. And so I've been with a lot of people over the last 12 years that manage money and stuff, and talking with several of them, we've come up with this plan, and it's still a work in progress. People are still talking about it. But that's why I became an independent. I was in the Republican Party for 15 years or so. Now, I couldn't get anybody to listen to me. I started with Mark Wayne Mullen. This is why his stuff is here. If you want to see more about that, you can go to my website, and I actually have it posted on there where he says at a meeting that Social Security is not his issue. And I have showed one time a film here in Craig County years ago. It had Senator Langford talking about why he won't take on Social Security. He's afraid of AMAC and all these other big corporations. And so that's why that's my major issue right there. It also has to do with economics in the community. I've talked with a lot of people that tell me if the older people would get a better income instead of a small pension they're getting now, that they could build better homes and have better things in their community, especially the smaller towns that I've been into down south is worse than here. And a lot of elderly people live there. Nobody notices them like you do in the big cities because they live out here in a small town or in the country. They don't have this big income. And so that's why we pitched the idea of this. It takes a lot of time. I do have a class that I give to people. It takes about an hour to do that. But if you want to know more about it, you can go to about our campaign or about the Social Security Trust Plan. You can go to my website or our Facebook and look at that. I like to tell people I'm just a money poor country boy from the hills of Oklahoma, but I've learned a lot of things in my lifetime, and one of them I've learned is that it takes many voices on the battlefield of ideas. You have to have them out there, and that's what I'm trying to be. I'm trying to bring out another voice and a different perspective on it. And so far, it's went over very well. I'll tell you right now, I'm strong in third place. I don't think anybody's going to take it from me. I may move up to second. I've had Democrats tell me that Brandon Wade's a bad candidate, and that if I had been a Democrat, they would vote for me, but I'm not. So I could maybe edge up a little bit. So I'd like to get to the part I like most. Do you have any questions, ideas, or things you want to talk about?
What's your website?
It's Ronnie Hopkins for Congress 2024.
Ron Hopkins for Congress?
Yeah, on the little blue card, which is inside the envelope, there's a little thing on there you can scan with your smartphone or whatever, and it should take you right to it. It's one of them little QR codes. Yeah. And so I do have a Facebook that we work on, and we did put stuff on the website, and that's why I probably should have posted them on Facebook, but we just have them on the website. Going back to that, that's another reason. I tried for years to get Republican parties at the county levels to discuss this thing, and most chairs told me the same thing. You do not talk bad about our conservative elected Republicans in Congress. And I said, but they're not doing this. I said, like Langford admits he's afraid, but he stands in a room and tells you how brave he is. Why aren't you letting your rank and file members know? I don't blame the people. I blame party leadership. The leadership matters because who decides will make those decisions. Like Josh, we started out, I worked with him on his campaign in 2022. He never talked about raising, the retirement age. He talked about looking at different options and different ideas. As soon as he got elected and he goes up there, his leadership comes in. I know how it works. I've had them tell me, and they have meetings and they give you orientation. He suddenly goes out to his town halls and somebody asks him about Social Security. He said, I think we ought to raise the retirement age, which, it's been done. It hurts a lot of people, and they say people are living longer. Well, I had a friend die last year at the age of 61. Tell him he's living longer. I look at the obituaries every week. It's a habit I have, and I see a lot of people dying before 60 or 70. So I got with some people. James Alt out of Tulsa came I talked with him, and he manages a lot of money for people, investments and stuff. And he said these would work if the government would implement it. The plan has changed a little bit from what's in there. I've been talking with some people, and even at the federal level, I guess I'll say the word, it's staffers, you know, that belong with Langford, Mullen, and Burkini. And I've had a few of them ask, well, what's in it for the government? Your plan says that 50% goes into, you know, Social Security retirement for the beneficiary, and 50% goes to them. This is the government's got to have something. And so after talking with a few of them, I'm working with a couple of financial advisors on a percentage to where I was looking at a guy that Rick Edelman has something like that, where at the age of 30, under his plan, the government would get some money back, and then it would fund the new babies and everybody that's born. So eventually, over time, the government wouldn't even have to tax you. It would self-fund itself. And so we're looking at a way to find a percentage to where, I want to do it where when a person passes on, then a percentage would go to the beneficiaries, a percentage would go back to the government, because I hate for them to get everything, and then they can use that to pay back here for new ones when they're born. And eventually, in about, I think a guy told me about 20 years, the government wouldn't even have to worry about it. It would self-fund itself all the time, like a big circle. Because people that would die would help fund the ones behind them. And so there would be no reason to have a Social Security tax.
So when you say, just give like a general overview, when you say help fund it, I mean, how would that, I mean, how does that happen? Would it be like a savings account?
It'd still be a retirement fund, but like we discussed in there, you get 3 options you don't have right now. And the first one you could leave it all with Social Security. The second one would be that you could put it all in a mutual fund. And the reason that they chose mutual funds is it's been proven that mutual funds don't ever go insolvent. I've met a lot of wealthy people, both Democrat and Republicans, at their meetings, and most of them are wealthy because they invested in a mutual fund when they were younger, either through their company or themselves. And the other part we added was that you could, I had a couple of advisors bring that up, so I added 50%. You can put 50%, keep it with the federal government if you trust it, and you can move 50% into the mutual fund. That way it's split.
How would you keep the government from borrowing from
Because it belongs to you, and you have right now you have no right to
borrow? It belongs to us
borrow.
now, and they borrow it from it.
It doesn't belong to you.
Huh?
Your Social Security don't belong to you.
It does too.
Good thing.
Everybody doesn't think so.
Everybody thinks that. Everybody thinks that's true. I don't have my glasses much, but.
But another thing, my son has been saying this for 2 or 3 years, and I'm going to tell you so I can tell him that I finally told him. He thinks that all the people that dies, that's paid in Social Security all their life, that dies before they get to draw any of it, that they could at least pay for their burial out of the Social Security.
I think they pay $1,500.
$200.
$250 very much. Because I know that was another thing that Josh Burkini was talking about. He's trying to look at raising it. One of his staffers told me that he's looking to raise the amount to bury it. But as far as owning it, I don't have my glasses right now, but it says that beneficiaries do not have property in the funds which they have an enforceable property right to. They don't have that. It's not enforceable. The beneficiaries of true trust would have that. But during a 1939 hearing, the chairman of the Social Security Committee maintained accounts containing funds earmarked for individuals and never had. It's never had any, he said. Its accounts then are just record-keeping entities. No individual funds means no property. So the Supreme Court decided that in 1939.
Well,
You have no
can't
property.
get your hands on it, but it's still,
So you never can.
You've worked all your life and gave it in. I
That's
don't care
why,
about your
see,
reasons.
under this plan, it would be yours. Like right now,
It's the glasses.
if you thought, like how they're sending it to Ukraine and all this in foreign aid, if you thought your money was being misappropriated, you could actually sue them and try to get something from it. Right now, people have sued the government before. That's how these cases came up in there. They had another case in 1960, and they argued that, and he told them that no one has a fully accrued property right. You don't have that. And the court agreed to that, which means you have no property. This is
Yeah,
what's
but they
illegal.
make you pay in.
Yes,
So-
it's a tax. If you go far back, you'll see it's plainly states it's a tax.
But they still make.
But they tell you it's not. Even Republican elected officials will tell you it's yours. But it isn't. This is the hard part I have. You've had 89 years that Social Security's been in force. You have 89 years of people saying it is yours. But really it isn't. It's right there. But and this is stuff that the government has. I just found it. She will tell you, I used to have a stack of papers taller than I was that I printed out just so I could read them. And this thing used to be 12, 13 pages long. That's my original. I shrunk it down, I've shrunk it down. But it plainly comes down to, it's not going to get done unless the people want to get it done. No.
How do we keep them from giving them to the illegals?
Well, it's the same thing. Right now, you can't because it's a tax. But once they fund you and you have rights, it's just like if you went down and opened you a mutual fund tomorrow at a financial place, you would have legal rights that actually government would have to protect your rights. If they mismanage your money, you can sue them, they can be disbarred. This is your problem because it's a tax, and under the Constitution, they're allowed to tax you. So therefore, you ain't got no money. They can take it, they've raised the taxes 4 or 5 times, and it never does any good, and they're looking to do it again. I have been told by the Democrat side and the Republican side by probably around 2032, they're going to do like in the 80s. They're going to come together, one told me, and they're going to raise the tax on one side, they're going to raise the age on the other, and people will be ready to accept it because why? Democrat politicians are preaching, let's raise the tax. Republicans are preaching, let's raise the age. So I've decided to become an independent candidate. And I want to get on the battlefield of ideas with my voice, and that's what I've been doing, traveling around. I'm 68 years old, and I'll admit, most people don't want to listen to an independent. Most parties won't let me in because they don't want me criticizing them. Democrats won't either. They don't want me talking about people that didn't even have Brandon Wade. They won't let me come in and talk while he's there. I have to do it afterwards when people's leaving. And I catch them outside, and I talk with them. And I'm finding out, guess what? There's a lot of Democrats that don't like the way the system is. That's why they've been telling me if I would run as a Democrat, they'd be glad to support me. And I tell them, why not support me now? But it's going to take a lot of work. It's a legal type thing. I'm not elected to office. If I was, I could do like him or anybody else and introduce legislations and bills. I would be able to go on the television. I would have celebrity status, and the news media will focus on you all the time, whether you want them to or not. You know, they're always seeing what you're doing and what you shouldn't do. I'd be able to talk about that. So what I do is talk to smaller ones, and I have done I've got stuff that I do like a little class on. Takes about an hour to do that. So if anybody wants to have some people that want to get together, I'd be willing to do that. But it takes a little longer than this. And
Well,
it's
I've
hard.
already drawn my social security, so
Well, I get
they can't take it away from me.
$781 a month.
You get what?
I get $781 a month after working until I was, what, 50? I messed up my back and knees. That's what they give me. Now, when I first started, it was $668. And that was 4 years ago or so. No, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6 years ago. So it went from 668 to 781 in 6 years.
So, Ronnie, I know you probably have a lot of stuff in your handouts, but I'm just gonna ask you, we can all go and read this later, but how would you make people, give their, what am I trying to say? Put this into the savings of the mutual funds. How would that be done? Like through working, it would be like a deduction like we do for savings?
This is the part most people balk at. I say the government should be the grantor. In the trust fund, you have to have a grantor, a trustee, and a beneficiary.
Okay.
The government is not the grantor. They never put their own money in it. They can't be a trustee because a trustee cannot have both the grantor and that status. It would be a conflict of interest. So if the government then basically funds it up front, then once it's funded, it's only in your name and nobody else. Like it would come into Linda Lucas, whatever the amount was. Then you would have to decide, do you want to leave it all with the government, half with the government, or invested with somebody. And when you do that, it would be only mutual funds. There would be no individual stocks, because the money managers I've talked to say the only people that should invest in individual stocks is multimillionaires that can afford to lose a little bit. They said mutual funds always grow, and we've got a few granddaughters. I've talked to my grandchildren for their kids, and hopefully someday it'll be something, because I've met people who've done pretty good with them. David paid for his surgeries and stuff off of it because it grows real good, but you have to do it a lot of years. So really, you wouldn't be paying the tax anymore. And the reason for that is there's Mark Wayne, I think, put in there $2.something trillion that the government has, and the United States that is debt, if you in my book here. So that money's there, they don't want to repay it. But yet they send hundreds of millions or billions of dollars out of the country every year in foreign aid. It's like Bobby Kennedy was talking about before he got smart and joined Donald Trump, because he wasn't going to win as independent. But he pointed out, if you take all of that money that they're giving away in foreign aid, it would save Social Security. That much, he said. If you took everything they're giving in 1 or 2 years and you pull it all back and you use it properly, Social Security wouldn't have a problem no more. But yet, they go around the world trying to make everybody their friend. And he's right, you can't buy friendship. And that's where the money is. It's there. They just don't want to reappropriate it. It's all about appropriations. Yeah. So it takes someone that's elected to office. I myself, if I'm not elected, can't do it. That's one reason I put it on the paper called Josh McKinney.
Yeah.
If you don't want the retirement age raised, talk with him. I've talked with him. I'm one person. She's talked with him, my daughter, a few friends. And that's what he told me in Locust Grove. He said, well, why don't you just run then? He said, just get out there and run, take it to the people. So when April came, I asked her, she gave me permission, so I did. And I will say that me and him, we still speak out on the trail. He treats me better than Mullen and Langford ever did. But he still won't give way on this issue because he believes that this one's too complicated, you can't get it through. He said, my big issue is debt. Well, over 14% of Social Security is the debt of the nation. 22%, he said, is spent every year funding Social Security to pay out to people. So if you implement this plan, and then say in 20 years it self-funds, you wouldn't have no more Social Security debt, and you wouldn't have to pay out that 22%. So you reduce the budget 22% in cost, and you reduce the debt by 14%. But I don't know who, maybe Club for Growth's talking to him, that's who put him in office. So, and they're supposed to know money, but he seems to believe the only way to get rid of debt is to directly attack the way it is, when you need to take something that's easy first, something that's 14 to 22% of something, reduce that part. And I'm sure he'll still talk with me, even though I'm kind of rough him up a little bit every now and then.
Well, the problem is, Ronnie, that's common sense. And our Congress isn't common sense.
But I want to keep doing it, I've been at it since 2010. I first talked with Dan Bourne when he was in there, and then I started talking with Mark Wayne, and then I went with Langford, and now I went to Josh. And I have to say that Dan Bourne didn't listen any better than the rest of them when he was in there. So I think it's leadership. I want to blame it on their leadership. I'm not going to blame it on the people, because I've met so many people that are struggling and would like to have a better retirement system. So I think it's the leadership. They just come in there and tell them, I've heard Mark Wayne and Langford talk about the whips will come out. When the leadership don't agree with you, they got these people they call the whips, and they'll come into your office and they'll sit down and they'll say, you're up for election next year. Would you like our help? Or somebody else will come and say, we donated a certain amount of money for it, but it's come to our attention. You're not doing this, this, and this. So then they have to move to the other side in order to stay at it. So I think that's the problem. I think he would really like to do something else. I like to think that way. I really like him. He started out well. I have nothing against Langford or Mullen except this issue. Other people have others, but that's mine. Most people that I've met, and they can't do anything about it, but Langford keeps winning, they tell me he's too cowardly, and they are right. Any man that'll say, I'm afraid of AARP, and what they're going to say, and I won't stand on the floor, and you can see him on the video. You can hear his voice saying it. We played it at, what was it, 2 years ago, 2022? Yeah, at Craig County GOP. We got to play that on there for people. It's the last time we played it. Nobody else let us. No other Republican group will let me do it, but you guys did. So You can go see it on there, we posted it on there.
Anybody else have any other questions, comments?
Well, I thank you all for your time, and I hope it's something you think about. And if you all are interested, you can call us, get a hold of us. We'll talk about it with other people, or we got people that's actually already calling him. We got one woman and her daughter, they've been calling every month. It's like clockwork. She said, we keep the phone. She said, it takes maybe 3 minutes. She said, I just call them up, mention that I don't want that raised or taxes raised up, and once in a while they'll ask her, are you a registered Republican, or are you in District 2? Because they want to help people in District 2 before they help others, and I don't know why. I thought they represented the state of Oklahoma no matter what. But I know Tom Cole's real bad about that. Try to get a hold of him and they'll say, well, are you in this district? Oh, no, I'm in number 2. Well, you're going to have to go to your rep. No, you're a state one. And that, I'm just hoping that way to get him to talk about it. Like I said, you know, bring him into the battlefield of ideas. Let his voice be heard. And I would like him just to sit down one day in a room with some people. We could both hash each side out, maybe have some other people. The problem is they're not offering any other plans, and there's several out there. You know, like Rick Edelman and their plan, which is Trust Fund for America, it's different than mine, but it still gives people some ownership, not a lot, mostly to the younger newborns. The one we created gives ownership to even a person 65 or 70, and the government still has to fund it, because they sat down and figured how much money you would have if you took the money that you taxed, took your tax of Social Security, and it was invested in a mutual fund for 40 or something years. This is how much you would have. And that's why I put $1 million on there. And so they don't like it, but it would work. These are money people, not me. But yeah, so I'll let it go at that, so y'all can.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but again, the government likes to keep our money, and I find it really hard if they want to let that go.
Maybe if they can learn that it's self-funding, then pretty soon there'll be more money for them. I'm working on it. I got a couple of guys that's smarter than I am. They do finances, and they have all these apps and computers, and they can look at stuff 40, 50 years out and estimate it.
Yeah.
So I want to wait probably until after the election and restructure everything, and then take the winter off, and then come back next year, and I'll be doing little seminars and stuff. I mean, it's an off year. It's a good time to get out and talk with people. I won't have to be running for office. I can just go talk, and maybe some of these groups that's not letting me come will then be more apt to let me show up and talk about it. And it takes time. If I get more and more people, look at history. Everything that got done took a lot of hard work. It's in your community, just like no matter what. If you want to talk about windmills like he wants, it takes a lot of hard work. Prior, you know, they had the TIF thing. They took a lot of hard work. They pushed it back. And it takes people, and when them groups are gone, years ago, Grove had a group called Get America Back, and they stopped the, what do you call it, the hotel motel tax, which is really a tourism tax. They stopped it 3 out of 5 years. But then that group sort of fractured, and they all went their own way. I don't know what happened. 2 years later, it passed. Because why? Get America Back was not there. So these they only had 20 to 30 something regular members that worked hard, but they had extended family and friends, and once they all got together, they were able to fight that stuff back. Now motels cost more. The chamber wastes all that money. Tahlequah's the same way. They lost a group that couldn't fight it back. They have a county-wide tax for tourism, not just in the city, but it stretches all over the county. So if you rent a cabin down on the Illinois River, you have to pay extra for it. And what they do, they used it to give raises to some chamber members and other people. So groups are very important, and I hate to see them disappear. That's why I really like Ok2As. They're usually 15 to 20 something people. Some counties have less, like Cole County, it's got a smaller group, but they're very active. That's what I like about it.
Ronnie, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing with us. And I don't know if anyone has any other questions. This is going to be a really short meeting, so unless you want to address anything else.
Maybe Bergstrom was going to speak.
Bergstrom?
Yeah, you speak?
What? No, he just comes and
No,
every so
it's here to
once in a while.